Guys, level 2 lockdown, the gyms are back. And for many of us, it happens to feel that we may have had too many quarantine snacks over the last number of weeks and feeling a little fluffy. I thought it'd be a good idea to look at the options and methods that we all have in front of us to strip away those extra lockdown pounds. Now, when it comes to weight training, when fat loss is your priority, there are typically 3 schools of thought or approaches you can take. The first approach dates back to the golden era of bodybuilding when Arnie and the boys would increase their volume and frequency of their training in the months leading into a competition or whenever they wanted to get ripped. See, back then, they didn't do a ton of cardio. The extra volume of weight training helped burn more calories and helped boost their metabolism to reach their leanness goals. Now, the second school of thought, which is more in line with how modern day physique athletes train, is to keep lifting the same during the cutting phase as they do during their muscle building phase. Now, the theory behind this is that the type of training that builds muscle best is also the type of training that will maintain muscle best. The third school of thought is that during a cutting phase, you should reduce the volume of weight training because your recovery is compromised during calorie restriction, and instead increase the volume of cardio. So, which method is best? Now, but before we jump into this, it first needs to be stated that all 3 methods have produced great physiques. So, they all work to some degree. But when it comes to determining the method that is best suited to you, and what I take into consideration when determining the best approach for a client, 3 factors need to be considered. Your individual work capacity, how severe your calorie deficit is, and how much stress is present in your outside life. So typically, what I have found works best for the majority of my clients, with of course exceptions to the rules, is reducing the volume of high intensity sets. Understand that muscle protein synthesis, which is your body's new lean muscle development process, is impaired, and muscle protein breakdown is increased during calorie restriction. So for the most part, you want to avoid excess muscle damage that is too much for your less than optimal recovering or performing body to actually recover from. So what this actually looks like in your training is not taking too many of your sets to absolute failure and avoiding too many intensified techniques. Don't just be throwing drop sets, ascending sets, negatives in there for the sake of it. More than ever right now, intensifiers, if they're going to be used, need to be intelligently programmed into your training and considered as an entire context. As a general rule, limit muscle contractile fatigue to a maximum of 1 to 2 sets per exercise and avoid performing too many of these all-out death sets in the lower rep ranges. This will help prevent excessive muscle breakdown and help keep your central nervous system still operating optimal. So for example, you might hit 1 to 2 heavy sets, coming close to failure on your first couple of exercises of your workout to help maintain strength and also keep your fast twitch muscle fibers engaged and full. And then work in higher, more moderate rep ranges on your remaining exercises in your session, visiting absolute failure 1 to 2 times tops on these exercises. Second, increase the volume of metabolic stress. See, if you're not going to super heavy and not taking too many of your sets to absolute failure, it is entirely feasible for most people to intelligently increase their overall training volume during a cutting phase. This is because as you go on a diet, mitochondrial and capillary density will increase and your work capacity will go up. This basically means that you'll be able to handle more training volume in terms of increased metabolic stress and still be able to recover without too much trouble. The benefits of this is often an increased metabolic rate, allowing you to consume more calories, and reducing the amount of cardio you will need to do while still being able to drop body fat. But here's the thing though, guys. Since the body becomes more and more efficient over time, it's absolutely critical that you build up your session volume gradually to account for your body's increasing adapting efficiency. Third, reduce your rest periods. Next thing to look at with how to correctly increase your volume of metabolic stress focused sets is by reducing your rest periods between sets. This will naturally limit the loads that you'll be able to use on your working sets and will be able to increase your session density as well. Now, this needs to be mentioned. Some people, usually those who are chronically stressed or have cut their calories too aggressively, bumping their session volume up too much, even when using submaximal loads, can drive them into a catabolic state. That's because their day-to-day cortisol levels are already too elevated, and that elevated level is their default. Increasing training volume up will just jack them up even further in this regard. Unless a person is able to reduce the outside cortisol increasing stresses in their life, well, I usually have these individuals training less and being tight on their diet. These types of clients, as a general rule of thumb, do best when we keep their overall volume low to moderate and instead increase their energy expenditure through low intensity cardio and a tighter diet. Fourth, spread out your weekly volume over more sessions. Next thing to look at is an increase in target muscle frequency. In a fat loss phase, I found it most beneficial for the majority of people to split up their weekly volume for each muscle group over multiple sessions instead of just one weekly session. This you'll find that your muscles can recover easier from each session. So for example, if you normally do a 15-16 working set session once a week per body part, try doing 8 to 10 working set sessions and hitting each body part 2 times per week. Your weekly volume will still be equal or even higher, but it'll actually be easier for you to recover from 2 8 to 10 set workouts than from one massive 15-16 set session. Not to mention that your actual sets will be more quality due to less intra-session fatigue taking place. 5. Don't try to specialize during a cutting phase. One thing that I want to end on, during a cutting phase is not the time to be trying to bring up a body part. A cutting phase should all be 100% about focusing on maintaining as much muscle as possible or stripping away body fat. Too often I see too many people trying to bring up weak body parts while trying to simultaneously strip away body fat. As a general rule of thumb, unless you're an individual completely fresh to training and just starting out, or someone going back to training after a very extended layoff, or someone who is quite overweight to start with, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't matter how many sets of a particular exercise you do on a particular body part, no matter how often you're hitting it, you are not going to bring that muscle group up on a calorie restriction. The best time to focus on building up your weak body parts is when you're in a calorie surplus, during a hypertrophy phase, when your body systematically is in an anabolic state. So there we go, guys. Hopefully some helpful insights there for everyone walking out of lockdown and heading back into the gym wanting to get rid of that quarantine fluff. As always, guys, if you have any questions, please hit me up. You can hit me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever I am. Give me a follow, hit me up. I'm here to help.